So you finally did it. You hit $20,000 saved. And you'd think that number would feel like relief. But for a lot of people, it actually creates a new kind of stress. Because now the question isn't, can I save? It's, what if I mess this up? Do you keep it in cash and watch inflation nibble at it? Do you invest and risk a drop that makes you feel sick? Do you pay off debt, even if it took you forever to build this cushion? Do you use some of it to upgrade your life because you've been waiting years to breathe? This is the moment where a lot of responsible people accidentally make a decision that sets them back, not because they're careless, but because they're trying to make the anxiety stop. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through what I would do once you have $20,000 saved, without sacrificing your personal life, without burning out, and without turning your finances into a second full-time job. Also, there are 3 jobs your $20,000 needs to do for you. Most people assign it one job and wonder why they still feel stressed. I'll come back to that in a second.
Here's the big misunderstanding. People treat $20,000 like it's an investing milestone. Like once you hit it, the correct move is to go find the best return. But $20,000 is not mainly an investing milestone. It's a stability milestone. It's the first time a lot of people have enough money to change the emotional math of their life. The way you sleep, the way you handle emergencies, the way you negotiate at work, the way you react when life does what life does. And that's why this moment feels weird. Because for years, saving was simple. You were climbing up and to the right. More saved equals better. Then you hit $20,000 and suddenly the game becomes identity. You're no longer proving you can save. You're deciding what kind of person you are with money. Are you the person who plays it safe? The person who takes risks? The person who uses money to buy peace? The person who uses money to buy status? The person who uses money to buy options? And that identity question is why people freeze. So let's normalize this. If you feel nervous right now, that's not a sign you're bad with money. It's a sign you're taking it seriously. But we need to replace nervousness with structure, because structure is what builds long-term wealth without stealing your life. And that open loop from the beginning, those 3 jobs your $20,000 has to do, this is where it starts. Because the mistake is thinking your $20,000 is one thing. It isn't. It's multiple things. And if you don't separate them, your brain will treat all of it as fragile. Let's talk about what $20,000 represents in real life. For some people, $20,000 is 3 months of expenses. For others, it's a full year. For others, it's honestly not even 2 months if you've got a family, high rent, high insurance, childcare, all of it. So the first thing I do is make the number real by connecting it to time. I ask, how many months of my life does this actually cover? Because financial stress usually isn't about dollars, it's about runway. If you lost income, how long could you stay calm? That's the first job your savings can do. It can buy you time. And time is the most underrated form of wealth, because time is what prevents desperate decisions. Desperate decisions are where the middle class gets crushed financially, not because people are irresponsible, but because they're forced into bad timing. Selling investments when the market is down because rent is due. Taking on high-interest debt because the car broke. Staying in a job that's draining you because you can't afford a gap. So before we even talk about investing, we talk about runway. Now, the second job your $20,000 has to do is it has to buy you emotional stability. And I know that can sound soft, but it's actually practical. Emotional stability is what keeps you from making reactive money moves. Because when your nervous system is on edge, you don't invest like a calm, patient person. You invest like someone trying to feel safe. That's when people chase performance, panic sell, or jump into passive income schemes that are basically just complexity wearing a nice outfit. So here's a simple way to think about it. If your $20,000 is sitting in one pile, and you're constantly thinking, what if I need it? Then you'll never feel confident investing any of it, because your brain can't tell the difference between money for emergencies and money for growth. It just sees one pile, one lifeboat, and you don't gamble with the lifeboat.
So the third job your $20,000 has to do is it has to start compounding. Not all of it, not immediately, but some of it needs permission to become long-term money so it can actually grow. This is where people get stuck. They keep everything liquid forever just in case, and then wonder why they feel behind. Or they invest too much too fast and then feel exposed, and that stress makes them quit. So the real skill at $20,000 is not picking the perfect investment, it's assigning roles, time, emotional stability, compounding. Now, let's get real for a second. If you have high-interest debt, like credit cards, this is where $20,000 can be deceptive, because having $20,000 in savings while carrying 20% APR credit card debt is like running uphill with a backpack you don't need. And I'm not saying that to shame anyone. Credit card debt happens. Life happens. Sometimes you did what you had to do. But mathematically, high-interest debt is one of the few things that can genuinely overpower good investing habits. So part of what to do next might be using some of that $20,000 to reduce or eliminate the kind of debt that keeps you trapped. Not because it's exciting, because it increases your margin, and margin is what makes long-term investing possible without burnout. And burnout matters here, because if building wealth makes you miserable, you won't stick with it long enough for it to work. That's the part nobody tells you when they talk about financial freedom. Consistency is a mental health strategy.
Here's the shift I want you to make once you have $20,000 saved. Stop asking, what's the best thing to do with this money? Start asking, how do I design my life so I don't keep needing to be rescued by my own savings? Because that's the real trap for the middle class, using savings as a patch for a life with no margin. You want your savings to become a platform, not a bandage. So let me give you a future self-visualization, just a quick one. Imagine it's 5 years from now. You still work, you still have bills, life still throws stuff at you, but you're not constantly bracing for impact. You have a cash buffer that makes emergencies boring. You have investments that you don't touch because you don't need to. You're not checking accounts every day like you're taking your financial temperature. And maybe the biggest difference is this: you make decisions slower. Not because you're indecisive, because you're not desperate. You can leave a job that's draining you. You can negotiate. You can take a week off without it becoming a crisis. You can handle a car repair without feeling like it ruins your month. That's what $20,000 can unlock if you use it correctly. And now I'll close that open loop fully. Those 3 jobs, time, emotional stability, and compounding, create a system where you build wealth while keeping your life. Not a system where you grind wealth and then try to recover later, because later is not guaranteed to be calm. Now let's turn this into practical steps that don't require you to become a finance robot. Here's how I do it in a grounded, sustainable way. First, I would decide what portion of that $20,000 is truly my sleep-at-night money. This is your emergency fund layer. It's the money that prevents panic. And the right size depends on your life. If your income is stable, your expenses are low, and you have support, you may need less. If your income is variable, you have dependents, or your life has more moving parts, you may need more. The key is that this layer has one purpose: keep you from being forced into bad timing. Second, I'd create separation so my brain can relax. Not because separation is magical, but because it reduces ambiguity. When your emergency money is mixed with your spending money and your investing money, every decision feels like you're pulling from the same fragile pile. So I like the idea of different containers, even if they're just separate accounts. One for bills, one for emergency reserves, one for long-term investing. That way, you don't have to renegotiate with yourself every time you buy groceries. Third, if I had high-interest debt, I'd consider paying down a meaningful chunk of it. Not necessarily all of it in one dramatic move, but enough that my monthly life gets lighter. Because here's the hidden burnout factor. High payments make people feel trapped. And trapped people make short-term decisions. Reducing fixed payments is a lifestyle optimization move. It creates breathing room without requiring you to work more hours. Fourth, once my stability layer is handled, I'd start moving some money into long-term growth in a way I can emotionally stick to.
This is where a lot of people make it harder than it needs to be. You don't need a perfect entry point. You need a plan you won't abandon during a normal downturn. For many people, that looks like steady, diversified investing over time, rather than trying to time it. And yes, there are plenty of ways people do that. The point isn't the perfect product. The point is building a process that doesn't steal your attention. Because attention is part of your wealth. If your investing strategy requires you to think about it every day, that's not passive. That's a second job. Fifth, and this is the part that actually protects your personal life, I'd build automation. Not because automation is trendy, but because it prevents decision fatigue. Decision fatigue is what causes burnout. If every month you have to find motivation to save and invest, you're going to fail eventually. Not because you're weak, because you're human. So if you can set things up so progress happens quietly, you protect your energy for your actual life, your relationships, your health, your hobbies, your sleep. And sixth, I would allow a small amount of life upgrade on purpose. This is where people get weird because they think wealth building means never enjoying anything. But if you never let yourself feel any benefit, you'll eventually rebel and spend emotionally. So instead, you decide intentionally. Maybe you use a small amount to remove a recurring friction from your life. Fix the car thing that keeps stressing you out. Replace the laptop that makes work miserable. Get ahead on a necessary expense that's been hanging over you. Not flashy upgrades to prove something, just quality of life upgrades that reduce stress and increase your ability to be consistent. That's what sustainable wealth feels like. Not constant restriction, not constant indulgence, just fewer problems that steal your energy. And if you're someone who's thinking, okay, but what about building multiple income streams and passive income? Here's my honest take. The healthiest income stream for most people is strengthening the main one first, not in a hustle culture way, in a leverage way. A skill that increases your pay without increasing your hours is a wealth strategy. A credential that makes your job more stable is a wealth strategy. A small side project that you actually enjoy and can sustain without sacrificing your relationships is a wealth strategy. But if income streams means you're working nights and weekends, constantly tired, constantly stressed, telling yourself you'll rest later, that's not financial freedom. That's just moving the stress around. You want money systems that give you your life back, not systems that require you to postpone living until some imaginary finish line. If you have $20,000 saved, I want you to take a second and actually feel what that means. That number isn't just money. It's proof you can build stability. It's proof you can delay gratification. It's proof you can take care of future you. Now, the next step isn't to swing for the fences. It's to assign your money roles so your life gets calmer while your wealth grows. Let part of it buy you time. Let part of it buy you emotional stability. Let part of it start compounding quietly in the background. And if you do this well, the biggest change won't be your net worth right away. It'll be the way you move through your day, a little slower, a little less reactive. Not because you don't care, because you finally have options. And that's what savings is supposed to become. Not a trophy, a platform.